It is another beautiful day in the flooded, plague-infested, snow-topped, can you tell I haven't slept? Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special Tooth and Claw because last time we were supposed to do it, it was Valentine's Day. And we had to take every opportunity we could for the holidays and the moments that we can to feel a sense of togetherness. Also, we were all like sick and tired and just couldn't have given you quality product, so we refused to do less than...
We're tired and also so sick.
Yeah. But yeah, we refused to give you less than at least a middling acceptability. Okay, are we transmitting?
We are now.
We're back! It's happening! For now.
What? Dear God, man. Technology.
It's been an absolute firestorm. And we're upgrading our equipment over here, but I'm not even sure that's going to do the trick, because at this point, I don't think certain neighborhoods are supposed to get internet. But that's just me. Anyway.
That's your neighborhood?
That's my neighborhood, evidently. I live in the brick monstrosity amidst a whole bunch of aluminum siding. So, we figured we would take this episode to chill out, relax, and answer some of the questions you folks might have about our characters and about our professions, because frankly, we're fascinating. Yeah, no, I'm too tired not to be egotistical. We have, thank you.
I'm a goddamn legend.
I am a treasure. So that's... I'm doing it just for the laughs. Just say yes, my darling. Yes, we are. Yes, we are not alone. No, I mean, we both do voiceover professionally. You know, I'm a game designer, and you're new to game playing, but there's still a lot
yeah, especially stuff like this is totally new for me.
Well, I would ask how you got into it, but I know damn well how you got into it.
Yeah, it's you.
Okay, here's a fun one. What was your impression of role-playing before you started doing it?
Everything I knew about role-playing outside, because I used to do it online, like freeform, it was just basically writing. But everything I knew about kind of like tabletop gaming and stuff like D&D, Shadowrun, stuff like that, everything was based off of what I saw on TV. So it was pretty much what Freaks and Geeks and Stranger Things. It was just like, that's what that was. It was completely different from what I was used to. And it still is. It is a completely different beast than what I was doing till in like 1998 on Prodigy.
Hey, you know, I'm a late bloomer myself. I think my mom actually tried to keep me away from D&D for a hot minute. I
remember, like, back in the day, it was supposed to be like this dangerous thing that all these kids were doing. Like, no, it's a bunch of nerds sitting around a table, like,
just playing some make-believe.
Stories about wizards.
Ozzy's playing in the background, and you know,
on your rush.
We're learning math. That's all it is with make-believe. I still have, in my opinion, one of the best like tangential stories about D&D in high school. Because I grew up in Cary, Illinois, and like for high school years. Before that, it was Schaumburg. What? And we had... I love Schaumburg. Scumberg. Damn Skip! We got Woodfield! Anyway, so... oh, God, I love Woodfield. I wouldn't exist without Woodfield.
Mall dates.
In a physical or philosophical sense.
There would be no Kevin's.
My parents met there. They were both working there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's making, like, hot dog and a donut fingers. And, yep. Yeah. I'll put it this way.
Woodfield?
If I was... That's great. Yes, Woodfield. Woodfelt. Yeah.
Would fairly.
Yeah. Why are you even off the camera? That's just anyway. So
Because
Just
I
hop
look
in.
like Death.
Just hop in and
Row.
make like sex fingers the entire time. Just...
God, I hope you folks are enjoying this. So we have 2 viewers, and I'm probably one of them. So, I don't know. Anyway, so what happened was my high school teacher, or my high school dean, thought I had been asked by a history teacher to give a demonstration of of how to sword fight, because I knew how to sword fight at that point. And we were learning about stuff in like classic Brit Lit about that kind of thing. Oh, see, that's just the person count lying on there. Thanks, guys. Aw, appreciate it. So we had my teacher asked me to bring in like a toy sword to demonstrate some sword fighting for the class. And I went and I thought, what's the most harmless looking sword I can afford and get in carry? And I ended up at Walgreens and I got one of those like $2 ninja sets, you know, with like the frisbee throwing stars and that super puffy white blade katana. Now, this was me trying to teach rapier and longsword, because we'd been reading a lot of Princess Bride and its ilk. But I'm like, you know what? Whatever. Nobody cared. At this weight, no, it's all the same. So I strap it to the side of my backpack, and I'm like, that looks pretty cool. And I go to school. I do my demonstration. I forgot to take it off my bag for 2 days. So there was an obviously toy katana strapped to my backpack. I get pulled out of math class by the police liaison. And this guy is saying, he's like, I'm sorry about this. I'm like, don't worry, dude. He was pretty cool. And the dean is sitting there. So, some students have stepped forward, saying they feel threatened by you because you're bringing a weapon to school. And I go, a weapon? Yes. Have you seen the thing? No. Well, if you had, you wouldn't be wasting my time pulling me out of math class. My worst class. Well, we're going to have to inspect your locker. Okay. Look, if you think I'm going to hurt somebody, why are you letting me carry around a 70-pound book bag that I could crush somebody with? Or a pen that I could stab somebody with? He's like, oh! You know, I'm like, I'm just thinking realistically. So we go to my locker, and along the way, the liaison is like whispering to me, I am so sorry about this. I go, dude, what's he going to do? So they go to my locker. They find this book of, like, cartoons that I got at the WTTW Store of Knowledge called The Book of Unpleasant Ways to Die. He did not like that. It was like comics.
No.
It was like comics of, like, there's a roach in somebody's kitchen and they're spraying and it goes in their face instead.
Well,
yes, obviously I'm a disturbed individual.
you're dangerous, man.
Yeah, I'm a problem.
I date you.
I'll marry you. But but he also
got all Arrested Development over there. Marry me.
It's except meaning it. And so you've got and he finds a Dungeon Master's Guide. And he's like, "Oh." I go, "What?" He does not know what to do with this information. I could have had a kilo of cocaine. He would have been about as shocked. So he's like, "Oh, we're gonna have to." This just takes it back to his office. We're gonna have to call your parents. Okay.
They They had to be like, just be like, he's being very chill about this, and we're trying to scare the shit out of him. It's
Oh.
not working.
He did not know what to do with me, and the liaison's just like... There was something about him that seemed like he desperately wanted some kind of conspiracy or conflict. He really was looking for his disaster to avert. And it just...
It was his Lifetime movie.
It just... Well, yeah, he did. And it just wasn't going to come for him. And he tried very hard to make me his very special episode. We go back to the office. He calls my mom. Hello, Mrs. Czarnecki? No, I'm Mrs. Risto. Oh, may I speak to Kevin's mother? This is Kevin's mother. I don't understand. I got remarried. I'm like,
dear God. How do you not get this?
'Cause. So, what year was this? I want to say it was 2000. Like, on the nose. Thereabouts, yeah. So this cat, he calls my mom, and she's like, this is Mr. Kelly from, and yes, I will name him. This is Mr. Kelly from Cary Grove High School. Oh, is everything okay? Is Kevin okay? Yes. Where, is your son's here in the office with me? Oh, hey, sweetie. Hi, Mom. Is everything okay? I don't know. Okay. Your son has been seen around the school with a replica weapon. You mean that toy katana that his teacher made him bring in? Yes. Have you seen the thing? No. Because if you had, you wouldn't be wasting my son's time. He looks up at me, and I'm like... She goes, you make him carry around that heavy book bag, he could swing at somebody, or he could stab him with a pen. He looks at me like, what the hell? I'm like...
My mom is John Wick, all right? She killed a man with a fucking banks.
At this point, all we had was Gross Point Blank, you know?
That's right. We'd
just both be like, I killed the president of Paraguay with a fork. How have you been? So, he's like, your son had a book of Unpleasant Ways to Die. Yeah, I got that for him from the WTTW Store of Knowledge. You got this for him. Yes. He has a Dungeon Master's Guide from the role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons. She goes, Mr. Kelly, it seems like you're trying to get my son in trouble. My son has a very fertile imagination, which he largely keeps to himself or shares with his friends. I've been to your school. I have smelled the marijuana. I have seen the cocaine powder. I have seen the switchblades, and I have seen the fights. And this is the best you can do. This is a poor offering, sir.
Damn.
And he's like, well, your son's going to have to be expelled for a while, or, suspended for a while. She goes, no, he is not. Or else we can take this to the newspapers. He tried so hard to get something out of that. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the police liaison sitting in his chair just going... Because fucking nobody liked Mr. Kelly. A few years later...
Well, obviously.
A few years later...
That's not anybody's favorite anything.
A straight A student who had been, pre-accepted to the Marines or some crap was told by a teacher, write out an emotion. And everybody else chose happy or sad. He chose rage. Perfectly balanced, straight A kid, plenty of friends, no problems. And the teacher was so scared by how well he wrote it that Mr. Kelly called the cops. And because of the cops, they had to go through a whole legal rigmarole, which held him back from joining when he was supposed to.
Oh my God.
That dude's little witch hunts got in the way of people's lives.
Wow.
So that's my story.
It's a lot more exciting than my role-playing story. I don't know. I used to play online, and then Kevin showed up and said, Hey, you like this? Sure.
I was like, Star Wars. And you were like, I like a Star Wars. And we're lucky enough to have Erica running it. And we get to play with Lindsay and Ashley. So, I mean, it's kind of a winner.
It's pretty much how I met everybody and became part of this. So, that's...
It's true. It's
Other than
true.
Kevin, who was my teacher.
That's true, too. Still have some spaces open, kids.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, it's...
Highly recommended.
Oh, thanks, man. But, yeah, let's see. Oh, thank you very much. Glad we straightened out the sound. So, in the absence of any questions thus far from the crowd, since I know you're still getting used to, like, Chronicles of Darkness as a setting, do you have any questions based on your first, like, real brush with it?
Well, the thing I'm still kind of figuring out with Chronicles is just like the rules of that world. Like, I mean, I only have basically movies are basically what I'm attacking it from, and I'm going like on that kind of logic, and it doesn't work all that often. So
it can. It can. I mean, that's back when I was lecturing on vampirism, I would have these I would have people be like, which thing is true, which thing is full, which thing is wrong, you know, like that. And I go, well, it depends on the setting. You know, the rules for Forever Night are different from Buffy, are different from Dracula, are different from other Dracula, are different from other Dracula, are different from Masquerade, are different from Requiem.
Twilight has vampires of a type, and like the rules are all different.
You know, honestly, if it wasn't for the name vampire, I wouldn't associate the creatures in Twilight with vampires.
No.
They can drink any kind of blood, and there's a number of mythological creatures that do that. But they have no problems with sun. I mean, no problems. They don't sleep.
They glitter.
They glitter, which I'm less upset about than everybody else. I'm just like,
it's just an odd choice.
That's interesting. You know, they're not vampires in the classical or even neoclassical sense, which means it's like the most modern iteration of a vampire has nothing to do with a vampire. Like, they supposedly drink blood, but they can drink any blood they want. So there's not a lot of inherent pathos at work here, unless they happen to think you are so delicious. And then you have an extremely toxic relationship.
Yeah, with an underage girl.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that part.
Yeah. I want to know why we all kind of ignore that. Like, he's like, what, over 100 years old?
Yeah.
They're still hanging around high schools, their champ?
You know, I was watching Erie, Indiana with the kids last night, and the very first episode has the twins who were being like, they couldn't age because they were put in the Tupperware. And they're like, you don't want it, you don't know what it's like to be in 7th grade for 40 years, or something like that. And I thought, Edward Cullen does.
The funny thing is, like, you can pass for over 18.
They all
You
can.
have to stay there. You can go.
Sparkly vampires.
Like, you're clearly played by somebody who is not a teenager. Move
like,
out.
like, go to college. Learn something interesting.
That's so many courses.
Daryl over at Gamer's Tavern is talking, sparkling vampires were the least of my concern. The highly abusive relationship presented was. Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Mostly because the idea that sunlight kills vampires comes from Nosferatu in 1922. Sunlight didn't kill vampires in Eastern European myth. It was just a requirement they return to their coffins by sunrise. For the most part, yes, it's not that sunlight harmed them. It was that it was not a natural time for them, and their powers were reduced. Not to basically quote Anthony Hopkins and Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula's Dracula. But
Featuring Dracula.
Featuring Dracula as Dracula, yeah. No, vampires have never been sunlight friendly. It's just questions of how unfriendly to sunlight they are. And it depends upon where in the world you're talking about your vampires. But featuring Dick Van Dyke as Keanu Reeves' accent. Bless you. I was impotent with fear. You know what? I still love him.
Oh, I love Keanu.
I love Keanu.
That accent he was going for, just good God, man.
I feel like if I met him and I was like, so what was up with Dracula? He would just be like, oh.
That was an entire thing.
That was a whole thing. Do you know how many times?
Tried.
I did my best. But years later, Winona and I would get to do the wedding date. And it was like, it's been so long.
Everything he says at the end, da-da-da. Just that cadence.
Which is unfair of me. It's reductive, and on the off chance Keanu Reeves ever sees this, I apologize. We think you're the coolest motherfucker.
He's the
I love
best
you
boy.
so much, Keanu. If you're listening,
You're breathtaking.
You're breathtaking.
And we love you.
Be excellent.
And
Each other.
you are excellent.
Party on, dude.
So, no, you've got vampire myths from just about every corner of human civilization. From, Aleps, Redcaps, Penangalang. I mean, theoretically, people lump Kitsune in with vampires. I personally don't. The Wendigo, arguably, is a vampire allegory. You can just go on and on. They're everywhere. In every culture.
They're worshipped in Peru.
And, yeah, and in Peru, they get a certain amount of worship. Yes, Jiangxi, which it actually is one of my favorite vampire origin stories. Like, this is one of those ones where I'm a person who's willing to believe this stuff exists, but I don't believe it till I see it. But I'm very open to seeing it. Which is funny coming from an occultist, let alone a porphyriac. But in China, as I understand it, the sort of atheist logical explanation for how Jiangxi happened. Are you familiar with those?
I am not.
Ooh,
like most of this stuff, I am not familiar with.
Ooh.
Like my favorite
I
was
did
the
a drawing
Doctor
of it.
Sleep vampires.
Okay, you know, like hopping Chinese vampires from old kung fu movies. They were like super stiff, and they'd be like, yeah, that is a Jiangxi. The idea was that the two parts of the soul, the Hun, which represents philosophical higher thought, and the Po, which is sort of your id, your darker base needs. A person would die out of balance, and their Hun would depart, and their Po would take over. And hungering for the rest of its spirit, these hungry ghosts would go forward and seek people who were of higher thought or purity and suck the life force out of them. And when they, because they were dead, their bodies would stiffen, but their nails would keep growing and their hair would keep growing. They could theoretically eat flesh or drink blood, but that was just a means to get to the chi, or however that's pronounced, because nowadays there's some debate. Oh, yeah, Daryl's right there with me. But yeah, their touch would freeze, and glowing mold would appear on them, and their eyes would be all blank. And in pop culture, you always see them with this scroll right in front of their face. Here's where it gets interesting to me. So, Taoist alchemists and monks, before soldiers would march off to war, would sell these talismans. And they'd say, if you die, this will make sure I can control you to get you back to your family crypt. And some of them were like, good! Other ones were like, whatever, dude. Just find my body and bring it home.
Oh,
this is my coupon. It's basically a coat check for your corpse. And they would carry these talismans with them. So after a battle, a Taoist monk following after them would basically bring like one of those rolling coat hangers, and he would find the people who had the things. He would put it over their face, and then with basically meat hooks, he would hang the body on it. I mean, probably hanging by the arm or clothes, but I'm not willing to discount anything. And so he would, in the distance, you'd see it, and you'd see this Taoist monk walking, and behind them, a bunch of bodies appearing to hop behind him in a row following this monk. So they were called the hopping dead, because they're stiff from being dead. So that would be the monk leading the undead home to their peace.
That's fucked up, man.
That's real life.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Real life and really fucked up.
Daryl says there's a cool RPG or storytelling board game, depending on how you want to be about what's an RPG, called Jiangxi Blood in the Banquet Hall, where you play a Chinese immigrant family in America running a restaurant in Chinatown under attack by Jiangxi. I'd play that at least once. That sounds awesome.
That sounds very you.
Thank you. That sounds like Big Trouble in Little China a little bit. I'm into that. Yes, Panangalan. You have guts hanging down from your floating head where you fly through windows to eat people.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's a ton of vampire variants. But anyway, I mean, Requiem is itself, I don't want to say derivative, but certainly descended from Masquerade. And Masquerade kind of has a whole bunch of myths that happen. So, Kickstarter for Blood in the Banquet Hall is coming out soon. So, yeah, keep your eyes open, folks. Free plug for your Kickstarter.
Also, Kevin, thank you for reading the comments, because I can't see them. I'm literally broadcasting from my phone because my computer sucks.
Yeah. No, don't worry about it. I got you, boo. I'll play operator. So, but yeah, Requiem definitely, like, there are Jiangxi in Requiem, and there's a number of vampire-like entities in Requiem, but it is definitely more based on the John Polidori sexy monster vampire, a dash of Carmilla. But yeah, ask me a question about Chronicles. I will answer it the way you want to. What your character would know, or the actual truth, knowing that you won't metagame.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing, because I know so very little about, like, most of the supernatural, paranormal ideas that kind of pop up. So it's easy to play someone who's clueless, but I am. But I think it's one of those things, like, as we play, like, there's going to be stuff that's going to come up, and I'm going to be like, I think I should know that. But
yeah, for a long time, I would run games. I would run games with players who were like, I don't have the time or the willpower necessary to read all this shit you do. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And they'd be great as players, but they didn't, read all the fucking literature I have and will.
All the lore.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it. And it's great reading if you have the time and the interest. So I would, like, basically run this stuff with the knowledge that they don't know and how to very quickly explain that. That's one of the reasons we're, 3SR does the mercenary game thing, because we can just explain it for you in a flash and you don't have to learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we have some games that ignorance works for you. If you're running, like, the Ravenloft Domains of Dread, not just Castle Ravenloft, but like as a land, as a dimension, a little bit of ignorance can go a long way. You're talking to Aslan Rex, Sorcerer King. You don't know he's a lich. You know, you're talking to Dominic Donaire, and everything he's saying sounds really good, and you really want to help him, and you don't know that guy secretly has mind control powers that make everything he says sound like just what you want to hear. You know, you don't know that this guy is going to poison you, or that this chick flirting with you, if she kisses you, it will kill you. You probably figured out Strahd's a vampire, though. I mean, he dresses like frickin' Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people kind of peacock. So.
You live in Darkon. You have always lived in Darkon. You have never lived anywhere else. That is a thing. In Ravenloft, if you go to Darkon, the largest of the domains, if you are there long enough, you will forget you ever lived anywhere else. And everyone who lives there remembers you always being there.
You've always been here.
Yeah, it's one of those creepy things. Which is, you know, just Ravenloft in a nutshell. One of those creepy things. Which creepy thing do you like?
Describe the entire goddamn thing.
You know, oh, you're playing a redhead? What are you, from Forlorn? I am. You got free druid powers? I do.
How did you know?
What was it like growing up there? It was like Terminator, but the Terminators were goblins with a Y. Oh, that doesn't sound so bad. They're 6 feet tall. Oh! Also, we have time. Also, we have random chrono shifts. Ah, sure. So it's post-apocalyptic fantasy Scotland. Yes. Jeez. Where do you go, Barovia?
Badass.
Yeah, right? You know, pick your favorite flavor of gothic horror. It's got a domain somewhere. That's absolutely it. After a while, like towards the end of 2nd edition's run of Ravenloft, they basically had a domain for every other setting, and they had a domain for every classic Universal monster movie. There was a Jekyll and Hyde. I don't know if there was an Invisible Man anywhere. But it was
like a missed opportunity.
It was pretty great. It's yep. He's Daryl's saying Ravenloft's probably second only to Paranoia for favorite setting to run, and for the exact same reason, the Dark Powers / friend computer. Hell yeah! Like that game, if you were too evil, you became a Dark Lord and were trapped in your own realm. Like you can become the bad guy. It was one of those settings, though, where there were a bunch of people who were sufficiently evil that you went, how are you not a Dark Lord yet? But there's a similar problem in, say, Requiem or Masquerade, where, you know, in the fiction, they'll have vampires who do the most twisted, disturbing crap, scheduled regularly. And you're like, how are you not a mindless killer zombie? How do you not... the rules just don't apply to your ass.
Whatever you feel like.
But here's the question. Would you like to know, as a player, how some of that stuff works, or would you like to maintain your ignorance, and I'll just tell you how your stuff works?
I feel like not knowing would be a little more helpful in terms of playing the character.
I get that.
Yeah.
We are technically using Hunter the Vigil rules for you. 2nd edition is coming out, and we'll update your character when that time comes. But for the moment, we've only got 1st edition on hand. Hunter is designed where you play a human, or something very close to it, who, for whatever reason, has cause to do battle with, or hunt, or somehow mitigate the supernatural predators of the world. That predatory, that nature, whatever it is, means that you don't always know exactly what you're fighting or how it works. Peter Vincent Vampire Killer. Damn Skippy. I love me some Fright Night. So if you've got if you're fighting a vampire or a werewolf or a ghost or a Promethean Frankenstein or golem or whatever, there's sort of a general, vague list of powers that you can just assign to them, because the hunter doesn't know about vampires' struggles for their humanity or Prometheans trying to reenact Pinocchio in the most fucked up way possible. They just know that they're trying very, very hard to stop monsters however they can. Now, for Hunter, you've got 3 levels of play. You've got the cell, you've got the compact, and you've got, like, the conspiracy. At a cell, it's a Scooby gang. It's the kids from Stranger Things. It's the adults from Stranger Things. They don't have a network to tap into. They don't have friends elsewhere that they can link in with. They're just, 5 friends with a problem. So you just make normal characters and do your best. And they could be kids, they could be college students, they could just, be a bunch of randos thrown together by one rapacious beast's, machinations. I still say machinations. I like it better that way.
Is there another way to pronounce it?
I guess you could say machinations, but I don't know anymore, because the internet has made it where if somebody says it wrong, everybody else hears them and says it that way too. Yeah. Like a friend of mine back in college who was like, "It's not paradigm, it's paradigm," and we're like, "But it isn't."
No,
but it
not
isn't.
even a little.
Boy, machinations. Yep, I hear you.
Machinations.
But maybe it's a British thing, like schedule, machinations.
Aluminium.
Aluminium.
Yes, absolutely.
Callure. So. Favor. I'll just pencil that in on my schedule. So at the second level, you've got a coordinated network that you can work with. For example, the Union, which is like the neighborhood watch, except they know about monsters and they're not having it anymore. Or the Long Night, which is like church groups that don't like vampires. Or my personal favorite, I think it's Ashford Abbey. Maybe it's Ashwood Abbey. I might be getting it wrong, but I think it's Ashford Abbey, who are basically the super rich who know about supernaturals and either 1, party with them, or 2, hunt them for sport. So that one's screwed up. Like, if you can picture Paris Hilton on a 4x4 with a crossbow, like looking to skin a werewolf, then you've got a pretty good idea about these guys.
On a 4x4? Just, I don't know why I pictured a board. just Paris Hilton a piece of wood.
Like Lost at Sea.
It's an image. I
saw a literal fight break out at a convention over whether it's Malkavian or Malkavian. Well, it's Malkavian, so somebody in that fight could suck it.
Somebody there is wrong.
There's a lot of pronunciation arguments in the community. I remember back in the day, people would be like, Zimshi. I'd be like, no, it's Zimitsi. They're like, how do you know? And I opened up a book, and right under it, it had a pronunciation. I'm like, that's Zimitsi. And they're like, no, fuck you. Okay.
Fuck me and fuck the book, I guess.
I guess, yeah, what do they know? But then again, I first learned how to say Bruja because of the first World of Darkness video game, Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, where they called themselves Bruja. And for a long time, I thought that's how it was said. And then later, it's like, no, dude, it's Bruja. I'm like, damn it. I've been making an ass of myself. But then later, I was like, I didn't make an ass of myself. Whoever told the poor voice actors in that game to say it that way, they made an ass of themselves. Anyway, the third tier, conspiracy of Hunter, is where you've got a group that not only has some kind of international presence, but has some kind of, It's not necessarily supernatural, but they have extra superpowery bullshit that helps them fight against their chosen prey. So, for example, Operation Valkyrie, or Task Force Valkyrie, which is the United States. They're sort of like if the X-Files and the Men in Black were teamed up. So they have super technology. Some of them are the Men in Black who show up, get the information. Some of them are the ones who purposely go out. In fact, there's Project Adamski, if I recall correctly, is their misinformation bureau. They hire conspiracy theorists into this group so that they can investigate conspiracies and add to them, thus creating a bunch of false flags for conspiracy theorists to chase down instead of finding the truth. You know that troll who comes into a board and stirs up an argument for no other point than to, like, make an argument?
Oh, yeah.
Turns out he's a spook.
Basically like a militarized QAnon.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately.
But in this particular case, with a noble goal, which is to distract you from the dark truth of the world. If that is, in fact, a noble goal. You've got the investigation group who goes, scouts stuff out, and then reports back. You have a little experience with that. And then you've got, like, the strike teams who go in with, pseudo-mystically powered UV flashlights and silver bullets and compound rounds and anti-hypnosis sunglasses and, like, some kind of shock cannon that shoots sunlight and, like, the little technological sonic blaster shit that works. The reason that only Task Force Valkyrie can use most of this equipment is because a lot of it has a activation chip. You get one implanted in your palm, so you're the only one who can use this thing. If a vampire were to kill you and take your ammunition, like compound rounds, which are basically a little bit of all the allergens of everything, so it'll bypass their resistances, William, my character, could load your compound rounds into his gun and have no problem. But if he wanted to use, like, your special magic-y machine gun, it's not going to work because he doesn't have the little ID chip. So that's a neat thing. But at that level, they've got that awesome, sweet stuff. And there are other conspiracies which have equivocal levels of power, debatably. The Aegis Kai Duro, who basically play a very long game of Warehouse 13 / Friday the 13th, the series, hunting down mystical artifacts. Yeah, dude. Man. It was it was a bad name because it was really Needful Things, the series. It really was. They chase down cursed objects to make sure the world will be safe from them. Apparently they also have a beef with shapeshifters, but I'm still wrapping my head around that because the original conceit is just so cool on its own. Why do you need to have them be anti-werewolf? Their special...
Rick and Morty has ruined Needful Things for me, by the way.
That's fair. I'm thinking of that episode. That's fair.
I'll give it to you, man.
It was worth it. So they have their special ability is they have cursed ass artifacts, which are sometimes useful, and they can use them to help themselves. There's a group called the Ascending Ones, I think, and their superpower is drugs. I'm not as into them.
Superpower is drugs.
They're right. Like narcotic alchemists.
Yeah.
I need to read more about them before I pass judgment. I just remember reading that and going, nah. There's the Vatican has a special, like, Inquisition that never really stopped. And they've got benedictions, which are basically prayers with a priority flag on them. that let them do some honestly pretty standard, like, cleric-y crap. My baseball bat glows now and will hurt you. Even though you're, a regenerative undead werewolf fairy mummy. You've got one of my personal favorites, naturally, the Lucifuge. I think I'm saying that right. Which are the 666 descendants of a woman who is allegedly the lover of Lucifer. So they are people who have a little bit of demon blood, who have been, recruited to hunt demonic and evil presences using their demonic powers of flinging brimstone and binding imps. Which is pretty baller. But there's a number of things you can do as a hunter. Your character has been a few things. As a member of oh god, we made that trailer and suddenly I can't even remember the things that went into it. You were part of...
Me neither.
I haven't slept much.
Yeah, I've been sick for the past 2 days, so hey. Great no worky. Sorry, gang.
Sorry, I was distracted and heard Undead Werewolf Faymage. Are we talking about Samuel Haight now? There's a little explanation to go here. For those who don't know. In Old World of Darkness, there was a non-player character antagonist named Samuel Haight. Haight. But it was pronounced Hate because Chronicles. Because World of Darkness. And this dude started as a kinfolk, which is like basically a werewolf who can't turn into other stuff, but they have some mystical gifts. Who really wanted to be a werewolf, joined the bad guys, hunted werewolves, found a ritual to sew the pelts of dead werewolves together to make himself a werewolf. Then decided, hey, cool, now I'm a full werewolf. Wait a minute, maybe I can stack some templates. So he goes out, kills some vampires who know blood magic, drinks their blood to become a ghoul, so now he's got some vampire powers. Then he reads their thaumaturgy books and gains the hardest to get discipline, thaumaturgy, which doesn't even make sense. So now he's got blood magic, I guess. And then in an adventure, which I have a copy of, he goes to a magic place, fights the guardians of it, breaks off a branch from a magic pumpkin grove, turns it into a wand with all the power of it, and that basically makes him a mage. So now he can bend reality with his magic pumpkin wand when he's not using blood magic, vampire, werewolf, kinfolk powers. If they... I imagine he got even more powers along the way, but this character was sort of like a cautionary tale, because back in the day people would say, can I be a werewolf fairy vampire? And they were like, please don't. They had
Please don't.
they had rules to try to stop you. They just weren't good enough, and players did what they wanted to do. So you had like were-cobra, vampire, wizard, gypsy, mummy mage fairies.
What the fuck?
who became wraith demons, and then died and came back as Kuei-jin, and somehow never lost any of their powers. Yes, Samuel Haight got cloned at one point, but I don't remember what happened to the clone. I don't know if he showed up in Demon the Fallen, but in Wraith, he was turned into an ashtray. And in one of the very last books, said ashtray is described whirling around the maelstrom as the afterlife effectively is destroyed in the apocalypse. So that was their way of saying, don't do this or your GM will turn you into an ashtray. Because that's how much we hate it when you do this. We're sorry we ever gave you the keys. Clearly we couldn't trust you.
Icarus flew too close to the sun.
Icarus flew into the sun in this case. Sam Ashbury. Huh. Okay, I gotta look into that. Chronicles bypasses this by saying you cannot have more than one template at a time. A template being a supernatural overlay of your basic character. The rules for attributes and skills and stuff are basically the same for everybody. But the rules change depending upon the type of it changes depending upon what type of thing you are, because each of them has different needs and different problems and different philosophies built into what they are. And two competing templates, whoever was there first wins. In our games, I allow a little bit of template mixing with the right circumstances, but they're very limited and they're very small. You'll never be a werewolf vampire. You'll never be a fairy demon. But you can be a vampire who unlocks some psychic abilities they would have lost as a human. There are rules for it. You can be somebody who learns oneromancy or whatever. It doesn't matter what you are. So it's possible to stack up some weirdness. It's just going to cost you what could have been further advancement and what you would have been good at anyway. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's convoluted as fuck, but I get it.
That's a bit convoluted. It could be worse. We could be talking about like older RPGs, which are ridiculous. If I was throwing rifts at you, you'd be like, "Wait, what?"
What was the Parks and Rec one? It was punishingly intricate for Cones of Dunshire.
Cones of Dunshire. Punishingly intricate. As though that's a selling point. Like, ooh, do you promise? Let's get this punishingly intricate game. But yeah, that's... Yeah. So there's a certain amount of focus in this game. I will say that almost every kind of monster is playable, which should tell you about the potential relatability of any given character. It's really just a question of, are your morals compatible? Can you see eye to eye? But yeah, your character was part of... I swear I knew this, and I suddenly can't remember. But you were part of the Vanguard. That's it. Vanguard Serial Crimes Unit. And the idea was your guy was psychic to start with. But they put you through something called the Wintergreen treatment. And this treatment is meant to awaken latent psychic abilities, which made you pretty damn powerful as a psychic. And that lets you be a really kick-ass like profiler and FBI agent. And then you got sort of loaned out to the Barrett Commission, which is not technically government, but
a little gray area with the commercial room.
Little bit. They turned you on to vampires. Like, hey, these things exist and they need to be stopped. They didn't have any special powers. They just had government influence. And you got to play spy for a little while on the supernatural and discover, because of the events of New Orleans, there's way more than vampires out there. New Orleans is mostly a vampire town, but you saw werewolves and you saw things you could only call demons. You saw some weird shit. Some overwhelming stuff. And you hooked up with a werewolf.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it did. All right.
enough so to want to marry her.
Wow.
After and it was not all drunken tourists. And they, but yeah, at this point you've been invited to Task Force Valkyrie due to your survival in these incidents.
I haven't died, so clearly I'm doing something right.
When you're as squishy as a human, that's damn near masterful competence. That's not, this is not a Van Damme movie, you know. This is, you made it to the other side. You must be a badass. The average person dies. So, you have the psychic abilities of Vanguard, and then some. And you have the nifty technical tools and authorities granted through Valkyrie. And this is all on top of your inherent like strengths and skills, abilities that you just have being a badass.
As a person.
Yeah. As a well-trained and highly competent person.
Yeah, I have to, like, the biggest thing I have to overcome when we play is actually thinking like a detective, which is not how my brain works. Like trying to harness that and, like, actually focus on everything. Like, I need to start writing shit down. Because up here, I have the memory of a goldfish, Dave. So,
That is fair.
No.
We had
The biggest struggle I have when playing is just remembering everything and thinking how that character thinks.
You know, we're both voice actors. One of the things that I teach, like, you know, I've got a few students who say to me, you know, I'm like, what professional training do you have as an actor? They're like, I was in a high school play and I play a lot of D&D. And I go, that counts. I mean, the high school play less than the D&D, ironically. Because, I mean, the play's good, you know, good. You've got some experience. You know what it's like to work with a director. Excellent. Well, time to take my pills. But the D&D and any RPG, I don't even play D&D really. With role-playing games, it forces you to think on your feet in an improvisational manner, to generate characters, to put yourself in the role of that person and think along those lines. So, I think role-playing is one of the best casual training techniques that we have as actors. You know, it really reinforces the Chicago school of performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know how all y'all are doing it in LA. I don't know how all y'all are doing it in New York. But here, we make shit up.
We're an improv town.
We're an improv town. Second city, yo. In the second city. But yeah. You research a lot of stuff and you find yourself building this muscle in your head that says, how do I apply this to my performances? You know, how does this fit in? Lindsay and I were watching horror movies the other night, and she was like, oh my god, this is why you keep saying this could go in Chronicles of Darkness. I get it! Because you're watching something and you're thinking, how do I apply this later? This could be useful.
It's something else.
Yeah, like we're watching the Skeleton Key, and I'm like, this is totally a standard Chronicles game. The protagonist is just a regular fucking person. There's no special powers. There's no, you know, you're not a vampire trying to solve this. You're not a werewolf. You're not a changeling. You're just a hospice care worker trying to get into nursing school who's been pulled into these hijinks. You are out of your depth.
I used to do that with movies all the time, like with storylines that I was writing. Just like one was like, I think Atlantis, like coming up with all these ideas that it was just like the lost city and like what happened to it afterwards, and I ended up writing like this massive backstory to it that I did nothing with. Like,
yeah, but that's the thing. Creating a legend is a really important part of any kind of storytelling, whether you're an actor or a writer or a role player. There's a lot of people who come up with this elaborate backstory for the setting that they're creating or that they're running or for the character that they're playing, and it might never come up, but what you've been through informs your performance. So you are less likely to sort of just go off the rails. I've known a lot of people who will say, so who's your character? I'm an Elven Ranger. Okay, who are they? Oh, his name is Matthias Windblade. Right, but who? Who is Matthias? I don't understand. He's got the scholar background. Okay, where did he study?
My problem was always that I would get way too into the character, and I'd start like writing their backstory, and I'm like way more into the backstory than anything they're doing now. It's still like, no, this story's fucking amazing.
I've been there. I think we've all been there at one point or another, and it's tough. I think it's important to bear in mind where you're going with your backstory. That it should lead up to something. There's a similar problem that pops up every now and again with RPG writers where they will come up with their own character to put in the lore, which I'm as guilty as anybody. I wrote a whole damn novel about Red for Shadowrun. And, like, literally. And you can have this story about your awesome character. But when it comes to the source books, and even when it comes to the novels, your character cannot outshine the players. You can't have your character magically come out of nowhere and suddenly solve everything. Because the point of an RPG is to create problems that the players get to take care of. We are just the setup, not the finish. We warm them up, then you take it off. So I try to see a background the same way, where I say, how does this character origin set me up for the adventure that's about to happen?
Right.
Yeah. So if you've got a character background that like primes you for whatever comes next, you're awesome. If your backstory has like a beginning, a middle, and an end, you may have outpaced yourself.
Yeah, that's how you end up writing. I wrote a character, and like I got someone to the backstory. I just created an entire story, beginning, middle, and end, to get him to where he was. But then I was just like, I really don't feel like ruining this with any other people, and just wrote 3 more stories.
That's Daryl just posted, I want to write a D&D campaign, but just play it by myself and DM myself. 1 hour later, I have been informed this is called writing a book.
Yep.
Yes.
That's exactly what happens.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't belong here.
No.
It's like
it's just this separate medium. Like,
yeah. That's very different ingredients for what we're trying to prepare here.
Yeah.
There's kind of a similar problem that happens with solo games versus group games. If you just have player and storyteller, whether they're a GM, a DM, an ST, the game mother, whatever, if you've got just one player, then this just one player is going to be is going to have to do everything. And so you have to make sure that they don't feel overwhelmed by the challenges you throw at them. If I have one rogue exploring a dungeon, I can't throw monsters designed to fight 4 people who are supposed to have a wizard and a healer and a big fighter. I have to create a dungeon for a rogue.
That's why I prefer, like, when we're doing these, that when we have, like, more people, just to kind of pick up the slack to where, like, sometimes my brain's not going to work. like today. Like, yeah. Like, you're going to throw something at me and my brain's going to be all like,
it's a curse.
And then somebody else there to be all like, well,
stepping in.
That'd be helpful.
Contrary-wise, sometimes you've got a group and people feel left out because either there's not much for them to do or they just do one thing over and over. The classic trap of playing the cleric is, oh, great, so I get to run around healing all of you. Whee! I can't tell you how many D&D groups I've seen where either the cleric was an NPC or the employer just gave the group a chest full of healing potions and said good luck. So, and I remember a cleric player going, great, my whole life amounted to a treasure chest full of healing potions that you carted around with you. That's super. Clinton Boomer put out one of his little blurbs about D&D recently, where the paladin is like, to adventure! And a goblin shows up in an oversized Viking hat, and he's like, I'm an understudy. And then, like, the wizard's apprentice shows up. Paladin's like, we're on a quest, and the apprentice is like, no, it's, he just wanted to say the bard had one hell of a kegger last night, and then he told me to be here. A zombie shuffles in instead of the necromancer, and a cat shows up with a hastily drawn sign on his side that says cleric and a healing potion strapped to him. It's like, and I'm like, I think I ran this group at one point. Like, that's
like with our Star Wars game, before we beefed up my character to actually have some proficiency with weapons. Like there were a bunch of times I'm like, it makes no narrative sense for this guy to be here. He's a pilot. Every skill he has is pilot. He should be sitting back at that ship ready to go at a moment's notice.
I would sit here with Lindsay and be like, how are we going to get Dustin more involved? He needs to learn how to shoot a gun. And then we leveled you up and it was like, oh, gunslinger, and his agility's ridiculous. This dude just became our best marksman.
And a pilot.
Whoops.
Han Solo.
I think it was the last one we did where we they had me hold like the back ranks while we were all getting attacked by battle droids, and then somebody's like, wait a minute, he's like our best marksman, why are we putting him in the back?
Stop. And you're like, I don't like guns, pick up the gun. Eat and shoot them. And I'm sitting over here, and all I'm thinking is, don't be Obi-Wan Kenobi, don't be Obi-Wan Kenobi, don't be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let go, Eaton. The power is within you.
You can't go wrong with the high ground.
Use your agility score, Eaton.
I've never been happy.
Okay, Daryl says...
Use the Force, Luke.
Daryl says, what everyone thinks the cleric is like, I just want to heal everybody and make sure my friends are okay. What the cleric is really like, if you spring one more trap, I swear to Peller, oh, sure, you're going to charge in, Barbarian? Good, luck surviving, because I am not healing your dumbass. That is so true, it doesn't even bear. My gosh, that you don't have to justify a thing, that's just how it is. That's... at this point, everybody wants to subvert expectations. I almost want to play a classic game, but I don't know. But the issue with the solo versus the group is when you've got a solo player in a group, and then they're kind of like, I'm gonna strike out on my own and lone wolf it. It's like, okay, but everybody else is playing. Y'all need to stop it.
I'm going to take care of it myself.
Yeah, but look, Buffy, we all rolled up characters. I know it's named after you, but
we did.
It's
you're the titular character.
Yeah. Fuck it. I'll get my own episode at some point. Or an arc about how I'm really the villain. But you've got... thank you, Joss. But, then you've got the sort of semi-flip side of that, because there are some systems that don't have classes or professions or specialties. You just build whatever you want. That's your... To an extent, your Chronicles. That's your Shadowrun for sure. And... you play games like that, and you don't get quite as much of you're the cleric, play a cleric. Or you're the wizard, play a wizard. It's more like, fuck that, I'm part face, part swordsman, part war wizard. Everybody's like, what am I supposed to do? Well, you be whatever you want, dude, because we could always use more of those. Side eyes and Decker. Yeah, absolutely. That's a problem I ran into playing Red. People would be like, God, why are you so good at everything? I'm like, I'm not. I'm good at 3 things. And forgive me, but everything looks like a nail to a hammer. Yeah. Like, I try to talk my way through it, I try to spell my way through it, and then I try to cut my way through it. That's what I've got. And if you need to deck it, if you need to drive it, if you need to drone it, if you need to about 50 different things, I hope you can do that. And if you also like to talk, use magic, and hit things with swords, it seems to me like 2 of us will do better than 1. And I will play ping pong with their skulls with you if you like. I'll be delighted. But I think that a lot of role-playing games that are class-based have sort of created this philosophy of this is your place in the party and you must stick to it. Chronicles sidesteps that by saying, well, being a werewolf and being a vampire are 2 very different things, but let's face it, we have a vampire ghost hunter and a werewolf accountant. That's not a normal fucking group. And you've got, in Star Wars, you could just pick up another specialization and be good at something totally different. I started as a Aladdin-esque street rat, and now I've moved on to adventurous archaeologist. So clearly you can step outside.
A lot of opportunity for career growth over in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. And, God's willing, I'll get some force and do some shit. Oh, woo woo.
Just waiting on the first chance I get to fly. I created this pilot character. I did one cool thing.
It's
and
coming.
It's all been on foot since then.
It's coming. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna be sitting
said
behind
that
you.
3 months ago, but it is coming.
Hey, we've all been sick or busy, but it's coming. It's gonna be that kind of thing where when it happens, the rest of us will have almost nothing to do. We'll be like, I guess I shoot the cannon, I guess I scan, and you're gonna be like, da 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 da. We're like, yep.
We're going to the danger zone. That was as high pitched as my voice gets.
That's okay. That's okay. There's a place for everybody. You think Kevin Michael Richards ever does high pitched stuff? No, because he doesn't have to. You think? I mean, do you think Patrick Warburton is especially flexible?
Oh shit! He's only ever done one voice, and that's Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, no, that's a guy who figured out his signature voice and just sort of ran with it. But
I know exactly what I have. I don't need you.
Yeah. You get Patrick Warburton, you get Patrick Warburton. It's not gonna, you get what you get, and it's got to be the best of what it does. But it's not going to be anything else. That is a highly specialized actor. But
yeah, like H. John Benjamin, one voice, he nails it. Nails it, just like, oh my god.
Daryl says Keith David is a soprano. Yep.
Yep.
That's either a mistake or a very specific choice. That's Charles Dance, shaking his booty. Did it work? Yes. But you knew that it worked because it didn't. It did show us that Chucky D is baller, though.
Chuck Dizzle.
Chuck D. Ain't nobody stopping him. He's a freight train. A Lannister always pays his debts.
Yeah.
Keith David doesn't speak so much as bass forms words. What did somebody said to me once? They were like, it's not that James Earl Jones speaks. It's that James Earl Jones is when the deep chooses to form words. I was like, that's fucking beautiful. That is, damn, I will never be that.
No.
I will always sound like
Very
it's
few of us
920
will.
something. But no, to finish off that previous thought, that whole backstory that you come up with influences the way that you do your performance. Voiceover, RPG, you name it. It's designed to give you a sense of who you are and how you will react to things. We've talked about character mapping. And that's what that map is for. It gives you something to refer back to. The idea that, oh, you know, this is how I tend to laugh, and here's how I would laugh under these circumstances. And in relation to this person versus that person versus these different circumstances, and so on. So that backstory makes for a richer, deeper character. It's just making sure that that backstory doesn't take you away from the story you're supposed to be a part of here and now. You know, that's about as bad as coming up with a useless backstory. Or one that doesn't fit, you know? Like, I was in a play once, back in the day, and I was supposed to play a grocer who gives, like, funny looks to this couple of women that I heard were lesbians. That was my whole part. And I told the director, it's not a big part. I get it. He's like, no, I need a complete legend about this guy. I'm like, I'm on stage for 15 seconds. It's the smallest role in the play. What are you doing?
I don't have lines. Like,
he wanted to know. I had like very simple lines. Is that all you need? That was it. And he's like, where'd this guy grow up? Are his parents divorced? And I'm like,
does he have an STD?
Does this apply? No. Now, I could tell you why I give a shit about this, but if I told you that I, like, performed a tracheotomy in Nam, it's not going to change how this scene goes. That is extraneous legend.
You don't know. Just at the end, you might just start crying because you remember Nam. You remember what Johnny said. What was going to happen when you and Johnny got home? You going to start that combo? Mm.
We were going to go back to Ibiza and watch them humpbacks. Sit down
I went home for you, Johnny. I went home.
Have you, by the way, seen Mickey Mouse in Vietnam?
No.
Go on YouTube sometime and destroy yourself. It's amazing. These orders are why we can't go back home. The war is over. I came to do a job, Goofy, and I'm gonna do it. Well, then you're just gonna have to shoot me. Don't make me do this, Goofy. Tell Max I love him. It's
pull the goddamn tree.
They're about, dude. Like, you're joking. I think that's basically what it is.
If you have the balls, pull the trigger.
We're never going home, Goofy. We are home. This is hell. You know, just...
The jungle's where we live.
You know. Or I think of Deer Hunter or something, you know. Hey, kid, you did it. You show them bastards. Will an empty chamber in that gun. Put an empty chamber in that gun. Back when Christopher Walken was taking things very seriously. Been a minute on that front. Not that I'm criticizing. The man has the career to do whatever the hell he wants, and more power to him. But hot dog. So, yeah. I mean, the creation of a backstory is very, very useful. It's just, you want to make sure that it brings you to the moment, not that it overshadows the moment. Yeah. I mean, the background you've got for Eaton in Star Wars is perfect. Because it's like, it's interesting. If there was like a flashback episode that was all about how you got there, I'd watch that episode in a heartbeat. But it's only an episode, maybe two.
Yeah.
And this is the series. And that's awesome.
If I had my way, though, it's tempting to just write a story where, because the backstory was that like him and his brother, were on this planet, and he escaped while his brother did not. I would have an episode where his brother comes back as an Imperial. Bam.
Isn't there some book where something like that sort of happened? Like two childhood friends?
Yeah, kind of. Lost Stars.
You were telling me about that.
Pretty good.
I gotta check that out. Someone alert Filoni. This one's worth adapting.
It's Disney, so.
Yeah, but who knows how long that lasts. And that's no lack of faith in anybody. That's just, I grew up with the expanded universe. So for me, like, I invested so much in this is true and this is not. And then turned out I was wrong.
Turned out you were wrong for a little bit, and then you were like, okay, there's new stuff. And now that's all gone because Disney. And because once the prequels came out, it underwrote a whole bunch of shit.
It did. I was like, well, none of this is at all what
Boba Fett was a lawman who became a Mandalorian or some shit. Like
Concordia,
Jaster Mareel, goddammit.
Concord Dawn, Journeyman Protector Jaster Mareel. Spice is illegal, and I will not have sex with Princess Leia.
Yeah,
that was canon. Not so much now.
The bounty hunter.
And then he had a cyber leg because he had cancer, and then he brought in that Deveronian from the Mos Eisley Cantina because everybody in the cantina that day was famous.
Oh yeah.
See, that
book went off the rails, man.
That's an example of overdeveloped backstory. Like, dude with a hookah? Oh, that's Danik Jericho, the most feared assassin in the galaxy. He's an Anzadi, which is basically a space vampire where shit comes out of their mouth that goes up your nose and sucks out the part of your brain that makes luck. Or something. Those twins...
Greedo became a cocktail.
He did! Some kind of pheromone cocktail. What is it? The Tals was best friends with the little bat dude.
Muff Tack and Cave.
Yeah, they had some fucking story.
They were smugglers and shit.
Yeah, the Deveronian was like a wanted war criminal who's caught 30 years later in the same fucking cantina, if I recall correctly, by Boba Fett to pay for a clone leg. Before he has a "we're both old men over the hill" moment with Han Solo, who's having a midlife crisis smuggling run.
Did Bosk get eaten too?
I don't remember. I
feel like
do
Bosk
not
might have
remember.
got you.
The twins were like gold dinging assassins.
Sonic sisters.
The dude who indicates Chewbacca claimed that he could do the Kessel Run faster.
Shaq.
Yep.
I wish I didn't know some of these. Like, why do I know Bo Shaq's name?
Because we were young, and because our brains had elasticity, and we were watching those little screensavers with the files on people because all we had was the expanded universe and a lot of time on our hands. And now our brains are fossilized, and we can't
I don't
absorb.
remember what I did yesterday.
It's
just gone.
I don't remember. I only barely care. I am adrift. Let's see what we got. Christopher Walken has stated he never turns down a role because he never knows what'll be good or bad until the movie's done, and he'd rather regret being in Country Bears than miss being in Pulp Fiction. Good point.
That's a very solid point.
Meanwhile, Patrick Stewart and Michael Caine say they never turn down a contract because they don't know if it's going to be the last one. Anytime could be the last one.
Makes sense.
Luke, he was really into jizz music. Well, aren't we all?
I forgot it was called Jizz.
It's called Jizz by the Modal Nodes.
Bigger and Dan.
Bigger and Dan and the Modal Nodes. It does bother me a bit when people take Star Wars too seriously, like taking it seriously in a fun way, but not seriously in a serious way. Yeah.
Like in a let's attack the actors and bully them off of social media way.
What the fuck?
Fuck every last bit of that, man.
YouTube keeps trying to show me, like, not my Star Wars, and I'm like, no, stop recommending this to me. This is mean. Look, I thought the new trilogy was crap. I did. I know a lot of people are like, hey, I loved it, and I'm like, good. I'm so glad you're happy. I'm not
going to talk you out of it.
No.
I liked The Force Awakens, and that was it.
Like, I liked the characters. I loved the actors. I don't blame them for 1 inch of anything.
There's just no plan. We're not going to get into this, because I will get into it.
I will sum it up at, I think the problems happened at a script, maybe directorial level, but mostly a script level. Like, somebody should have looked at the script and gone, why? That doesn't make sense.
There just wasn't a plan.
Yeah.
There's no plan for what they were going to do. And yeah, they did that with the original trilogy, but they did it so much better.
They didn't have a plan, but the same guy was in creative control, so there was a sense of narrative continuity. These ones just feel very disjointed. Yeah.
Yeah, man, yeah.
And I mean, there's also the whole argument of, well, that's subverting expectations. You know, if I bite into a hamburger and it turns out it's made of feces, that's also subverting my expectations. That is not inherently good.
One time someone gave me a hamburger. They said it was a hamburger. They said it was a ham burger. It was made of beans. That subverted my expectations, and I was not happy about it. Because it tasted terrible. They were like, it's a veggie burger. I'm all like, well, it's awful. Sorry. If you are a vegetarian.
You know, if you had told me this was a bean sandwich that would remind me of a burger, I would have been like, oh.
No. I would have been like, no, but good for you.
I could be like, that's a bean sandwich. And I guess I get what you're saying. It reminds me vaguely of a burger. You know,
consistency on the outside of it is a burger.
It's like looking at a lesser Hemsworth brother and being like, you remind me of Chris. You know, it's not. I'm sure you're very good.
Have you watched The Good Place?
I'm working through it.
There's at one point they have the lesser Hemsworth brother, the one who never gets mentioned. He's just like, it's just because I'm under 6'4" and only have this chiseled jawline.
Sounds about right. What can you do with that? Let's see. He says, A New Hope is literally a fairy tale. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, a wizard gives a farm boy a magical sword to convince him to take up his destiny to storm the Black Knight's castle with a rogue ally to rescue the princess. Dead true. Yep. Add a patina of Buck Rogers and a dash of Kurosawa, and there you are.
More than a dash of Kurosawa.
You know what I mean.
You know what you know what I mean.
It's look. I know it's a hidden fortress, and we don't have to go into it. If you've seen the Hidden Fortress and you put John Williams on in the background, it's basically Star Wars. So
it's a freaking Star Wars. We're doing Return of the Jedi now, I guess.
See, I still love when somebody hasn't seen Casablanca. And I'm like, do you like Star Wars? They go, yeah. I'm like, go watch Casablanca. And they come back going, I think Casablanca might be Star Wars. I'm like, it might be the other way. They're like, all the sounds are the same. I'm like, yeah. Most of the sound effects for Star Wars are like a wire being smacked or World War II sounds, you know? Somebody's like, man, where do they come up with the sound of the Millennium Falcon starting up? And I go, watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. Listen to the sound of a plane starting. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm like, now look at the side of the plane. O-B-C-P-O. Obi-Wan C-3PO! I'm like, yeah, I know. Hey, watch Temple of Doom. Do I have to? Just don't worry about it. Just look at the name of the club as they leave. Club Obi-Wan! They lose their shit.
There's Dan Aykroyd for some reason.
Just for 3 seconds, but on Amazon, he gets top billing.
What?
Harrison Ford, Dan Aykroyd, Wuzzernuts.
Oh.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Capshaw.
Yeah. That's.
And Q-Quicklan or whatever his name is.
Hey, that guy's awesome. And if they ever make like a real Goonies sequel, I want to see some real Goonies returners. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see
I'm
Thanos.
not too keen on seeing Feldog return, but
Actually, I'm okay with it. I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's been through a lot and he's coping.
oh, he's seen some shit.
Yeah, like he's doing what he's got to do. I'm not saying Corey's Angels is a good idea.
No.
I'm not saying his music is great, and I've listened to it to make sure.
Oh, it's so bad.
But I don't feel bad I don't feel like he's a bad guy. I feel he's
just very detached from reality.
He's a survivor. But you know what? I think put with the right people, he might be okay. One of his music videos has frickin' Sean Astin for 3 seconds consulting about a treasure map and then taking a puff from an inhaler. I was like, good for you, Corey. And way to be a pal, Sean.
Sean Astin, solid bloke.
That's what you hear. That's what you hear. Like, decent dude.
Oh.
Goodness knows that's rare enough now. So let's see. I love The Last Jedi, but I think the more you know about modern film theory, the more you appreciate what that film did. I think that's a discussion to have. We'll have you on the show, Daryl. I want to debate this. Or not even debate. I want to listen, because you're one of the most well-informed humans I've ever met. And even when we disagree, I really respect your points. So that would.
Yeah, but I respect you.
Yeah. So I'd love to have that discussion. It wouldn't even be a debate because I'd be there to learn. Let's see, Flash Gordon specifically. Yup. Which is ironic. Star Wars happened because Lucas couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon, so he said, I'm going to make my own Flash Gordon with Jedi and jizz music. And then because Star Wars was a hit, the Flash...
Jedi and Star Wars.
And then the Flash Gordon movie got greenlit because Star Wars was a hit, which I've seen Flash Gordon at least 3 times, and the only thing I remember is Gordon's alive and Flash. Ah! What?
You're the same as every one of us.
What? You don't remember Hawkman? Yeah!
Yeah. Brian Blessed.
Brian Blessed is a real life and two-fisted adventure hero. Like that dude climbed Everett and boxed the Dalai Lama. Okay? Like that's not
ridiculous awesome man.
Neither of those are
and
exaggerations.
He
was boss ass because why not? He was in Flash Gordon and Star Wars if you count the prequels, which we have to.
Yeah, he's so no caring about the number. Why?
I would Brian Bless is one of those people I would probably trust sight unseen. Like, I remember thinking, God, please tell me this man has never assaulted anybody. Please tell me he's never assaulted anybody. I'd lose all faith. I'd be like, Tom Hanks probably does horrible things if Brian Bless did. And I looked up controversy about Brian Blessed, and most of them were about him punching the shit out of guys who were harassing women. I was like, that went the exact opposite of where I worried about, and I feel good. It'd be like, and like these days he's adapted the language. He'd be like, consent. Just this gargantuan yeti of a man who I hold in such high regard. This glorious bearded fellow. This Santa Claus who is the gift. Anyway, we got Watch Temple of Doom and Gunga Din back to back. All right, there's probably a point to be made, but my heart can't take that right now. Let's see. We were talking about the pulp adventure heroes and how we don't have them anymore, and how a lot of these authors were the real deal. It's true. Say what you will about Hemingway, but he was there. Temple of Doom is Gunga Din. Oh shit. Okay, that's even better. Maybe I will watch that. So yeah, that's. Yeah, the funny thing is, I've been looking to expand my Star Wars soundtrack for our games, because I feel like I'm getting repetitive. And you can't use a lot of the soundtracks in video games, and especially not in movies, because they're too dynamic instead of being thematic. You know about this, right, Dustin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, if it's all over the damn place because it's matching the action in the movie, which John Williams does quite a bit, then... Smooth. Then...
Good.
Yeah. You do like a somersault there. That was amazing. But if you have... I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, no. If you have thematic music, it loops nicely, like in a video game. But finding video game soundtracks is hard to do, and more those soundtracks are becoming thematic. You can't just get the loops like you used to. Now you have to get something that's all up and down and left and right and sideways, and it's very hard to work with. So you're in trouble. So I started thinking...
There were a couple tracks that I found on an extended soundtrack for Jedi Outcast. Or, no, what was that last one that just came out?
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order, that's what I'm thinking. There were a couple of tracks on there that were good for a loop. I think I sent you one. It's called The Second Sister.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just ominous as fuck.
That's good. Oh, yeah. That's... problem is, like, a lot of the music that I really, really love, I can't get through Spotify. There are some websites where you can actually get rips off the disc of the loops with the moods. And when you're using that at a table, oh, it's so good. So good. And that just, nobody releases an album of that. So...
I think KOTOR had those. Knights of the Old Republic.
It did.
Like that.
It did. Most video games do. They'll have the calm, stress, and hard version of any given song. Probably the one I got the most use out of, especially for Star Wars, for a long time, was the Deus Ex Human Revolution soundtrack by, is that Michael McCann? He's one of my favorite video game composers. He did XCOM as well. And about, I want to say like a third of Borderlands 3. So this guy, you could find the file rips, and there would be the calm version of music, and then there'd be the amp version of the music where like something's happening but you're not fighting, and then there'd be the combat version where there's like harder percussion but it's still recognizably the same song. Really great for maintaining like the theme and sense of place, so you're not just going from doo-doo-doo to I did my time. I'm looking at Twitch and it's like there was a network error. Damn it. Again.
We're still broadcasting.
We're broadcasting. But yeah, so it's hard to find that kind of like those specific dynamic tunes where you can get them on, say, Spotify, and we can share a playlist with people and be like, if you like if you'd like to know what we're listening to, here you go. We're not making any money off it. So, because legal reasons. But if I could like transmit any music I wanted, if I wasn't, stuck basically with Spotify, I'd probably be using, well, I don't want to name any websites and get them in trouble. But there are some websites I'd be using, like those ripped sounds. It's, yes, Daryl's mentioning Nintendo does really well with that in their scores. Like Mario Kart, different parts of the track have different things, so they crossfade as you hit them. Absolutely, dead on. It's, you see it slightly less in JRPGs. You see it slightly more in more modern games versus classics, but it's definitely a thing. But they do still release a soundtrack with a video game more often than not now. It's just that soundtrack is like the different stages, the soft, the stress, and the hard, all just woven into one song. One of the perfect examples, for Daryl, is Shadowrun Returns. Amazing soundtrack, and Dustin, if you haven't heard it, check it out sometime. It's fun listening, but you can hear it where it's like the soft version. You're like, okay, this is calm, and then the stressed version. You're like, oh, this is where you're not necessarily fighting, but you feel like a fight's coming, and then the fight version, and you go, yeah, this is where they're shooting at each other. And if you bought the soundtrack, you get them all. It's just they're all one track. And it's kind of hard to use that dynamically in a game. So I pine for my days.
You know what that reminds me of?
It
reminds me of like that first time I was playing the Spider-Man game for PS4. And the first time you realize that there's different line readings for when you're standing still and from when you're doing something. So you could actually hear him like struggling as he's swinging and saying the line, as opposed to when he's just standing around not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of thing had an effect on you.
Thing, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's subtle, but
because honestly, like, I don't really have all that many questions. I just need to. I want to take this week to kind of dig into the lore and the world of the whole thing, and just kind of familiarize myself with that, because I didn't get to do that last time.
That's true. I'd say watch some X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good place to go. Whatever is.
Well, there are books, right? That I can, or books, or at least somewhere on the internet I can go.
Oh yes. Okay. Bare minimum. You could read the Hunter the Vigil core book. That has plenty of details about Task Force Valkyrie. It talks about. It won't talk about Vanguard or Barrett, but you could find that information online pretty easily. It's got the rules, it's got the setting, it's got the mood, it's got the atmosphere, and it has no spoilers for you. So you could read that thing cover to cover, and I'd be like, fine. You still don't know what really that vampire can do to you. You don't know what touching the evil rock is going to do to you. Turn you into hermit crabs, one assumes. You don't know.
98%.
Time bandits, yo. And then Sean Connery winks at you for some reason and leaves you with your hermit crab parents as he rides off with firefighters. Or you could, it'll tell you everything you need to know about you and what you could do. But it won't tell you necessarily about what they can do. Only in the most broad sense of, oh shit, vampire. Stake them in the heart, put them in the sun. Good gods, they'll just keep coming back. Oh my god, oh my god.
Oh god, we're all gonna die?
Sorta, kinda. It's one of the funny things about vampires in Chronicles. Everybody's like, oh, they're so squishy, though. And I'm like, you have any idea how hard it is to, like, really kill a vampire? Like, if you've got sunlight or a flamethrower, you can kill them. Otherwise, everything you do is just adding to the clock before they come back. Angry and hungry. Daryl points out, hunters don't know about clans and tribes and whatnot. They just know vampires and werewolves. Exactly. A hunter doesn't know about a vampire's humanity score, or what that means, or why it matters. And to them, maybe it doesn't. A hunter doesn't know what a vampire is capable of beyond what they've heard and what they've seen. And to you, a Nosferatu, a Ventru, a Maquette, a Deva, a Gangrel...
Dracula?
Yeah. See, to you, those were all... Those are pretty sounding things. But could you tell me which one has a greater capacity to hypnotize you? Or is that a trick question? They can all do it. Which one is spoopy? What are the telltale signs and weaknesses of each one, and how do you exploit it? And how would you even have the ability to find out these details? Or do you just say, heard fireworks, and get a flamethrower?
At all times. Anytime I hear fireworks, I get a flamethrower. I mean, I just...
Pretty much.
In my day-to-day life. What is that?
It's like, look, Ellen Ripley kit bashed that shit to a pulse rifle, and I haven't been the same since. My favorite quote is vampires.
I have a pulse rifle. So I am just one weapon short of making this reality.
Well, now you need an incinerator. My favorite quote is from Vampires by John Stakely. Do you have any idea how fast a master vampire can move in 1 minute? No. No, nobody does. There's too many fucking oceans in the way. Perfect. Cannot believe Wes Craven somehow... Was that Wes Craven or John Carpenter? That was John Carpenter, I think.
Carpenter, yeah.
It's one of the few where I'm like, really, John? Okay.
Huh.
Man, that movie... When somebody asks me about Rift's Vampires, I'm like, watch John Carpenter's Vampires. That's about right. Vampires are mostly dumb. Budget cut. That does explain a lot. Thank you, Daryl. No, they did that just... I don't know. It's hard to take James Woods seriously before we found out he was kind of an asshole.
Yeah, kind of.
Serious... yeah, I'm being very generous.
You're being very generous.
Very generous. I remember distinctly, like, watching his character just going, God, this is your whole thing, isn't it? You're belligerent. That's your whole character. But he has... But there's this line where he's like tied up. He's like, hey, and Valak the vampire, what will silence you, Jack? Come here, prick. Untie me. And I'm just like, if this were an RPG and I were running it, I would have killed off Jack way sooner, and I would have told the character, roll up a new character. I would have told the player, roll up a new character. No, fuck it. I would have told the character, roll up a new player. No, Freudian slip. I'm going to lean into it. Yes, replace them at the table. We're doing murder. I invite your fiction to murder your reality. Because I'm done with you, sir. So on that note, because we're creeping up on the last couple of minutes, and it's fun just hanging out with you and talking games and theory. But yeah, so yeah, spoilers for the book, whatever.
Like a dick, spoilers.
And I haven't read. Oh, bet you lost me. I bet you lost me. Any second now. Did you lose me?
You're back now.
Oh, I'm back now. Okay.
Back now.
Good. All
We're
right.
back now.
So, yeah, we're just going to abandon
Yes.
this sinking ship that is our internet in just 1 second. Thanks to all 3 of you who at some point or another joined us. We love you. Your loyalty is noted, and you are appreciated. Join us.
You will be repaid.
Yes, with glory. Cover yourself in glory.
Drape yourself in the glory of us.
Yes. When is the next Jerry Atwitch?
2 weeks.
Boy, howdy. It's in 2 weeks. I think.
In 2 weeks. Okay, in 2 weeks. Tune in Tuesday for Jerry Atwitch. In 1 week, this same time slot you just experienced comes the next Chronicles of Darkness installment where we introduce a new player to the game. Oh yes, my friends, the excitement, it runs red. Aside from that, you can also look forward to upcoming announcements for Crit Chicks and for Shop Talk. Beyond that, please like, share, subscribe, donate, coffee, tip, jar, kick, runner, go fund, give money. We run games. We like voiceover for you to make business making money for family.
And we make good word. We're good at word noises.
Word good have.
We're good make word.
Yep. So face spam us on the Insta Twitter and tell us what you like and think, and we'll see if we can do that. Yes, share, like, a scribe. Thank you, Daryl. That is absolutely the Chris Mahana Kwanzaa we were looking for here. Perfect.
Turducken.
Boom, turduckened it. Like Samuel Haight. So,
Wow, bringing it up back.
wrapping it up, dude.
Wow,
It's a
fucking bow on it.
fucking George Lucas. It's a circle. You know, everything sort of rhymes.
Rhymes, it's like poetry.
Yeah, Jar Jar is the key to all of this.
No.
I know what I'm watching today. All right, kids. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a week for Tooth and Claw, Project Valkyrie. And aside from that, please take care of yourselves. Wear your masks. Drink water. Call whoever you need to. Take care of your brain. Take care of your body. Take care of each other. We love you. Mwah. Bye.